So today I want to talk to you about something I've been seeing blowing up over YouTube, which is how to deal with a narcissist, how to overcome a narcissist, how to stop a narcissist in their tracks. People talking about narcissism. I mean, it comes up in my question and answers, and people will talk about the narcissist in their life. And so I thought this was a good time to bring up this subject. Another question I have for you: are narcissists possessed by demons? If you have had close interaction with somebody who is narcissistic or an outright narcissist, they seem to get pleasure out of destroying you. They seem to get pleasure out of your pain. I mean, we see this with murderers, serial killers, things like that. I mean, those people enjoy, they actually feed off of that. What does that have to do with evil spirits? Well, evil spirits are basically the narcissists of the spiritual realm. And let's be clear what I mean by narcissist. Narcissism, it comes from the myth of Narcissus, who was somebody, the most beautiful man in the world, and they didn't have mirrors way back then, 3,000 years ago or whatever it was, and he saw his reflection in a pond, and he couldn't pull his gaze away. He was so in love with the image that was staring back at him. And so this became where we get the word narcissism. And narcissists are wrapped up in themselves. They're only interested in themselves. And the reason for that is because they do not have the capacity. A true narcissist will not have the capacity to have empathy for you. They do not see you as an equal. They do not see you as human. They see you as an object that they get their pleasure from. And so they have no regret or remorse for the harm that they cause you. And in extreme cases, when we're talking about like serial killers, not only do they not have remorse, it's something they absolutely enjoy. So if you've experienced a narcissist and they've been cruel or abusive to you, you will see that they are enjoying it. They enjoy the pain that they cause you. So that's what a narcissist is. And so it's important to understand that the whole important point about that word narcissism is somebody who does not have any empathy for you, really doesn't care. Because they can't. Empathy means that you can see yourself in the other person. You can put yourself in the other person's shoes and imagine how painful it would be for you to be that person. And so that's that's what holds society together. Without empathy, there would be, there wouldn't be a society. There wouldn't be a human race. So, are narcissists possessed? I'm going to say the answer to that question is yes, they can be. Because if somebody truly is possessed by an evil spirit, then the evil spirit, if it is functioning through that person, is going to act narcissistically. Because the definition of an evil spirit is a spirit that cannot empathize with you. So we should talk a little bit about that. I won't get too deep into it because I want to get into the actual narcissism of the person who could be possessed and the person who isn't. An evil spirit, I'm not going to get into how they're formed, but the point is that an evil spirit is disconnected from the source. If you want to call it God, that's fine. The light of the universe, whatever word you want to use. And as such, this spirit is absolutely fearful of being exposed by the light of the spirit. So it can't feed everything, like all life on the planet Earth. All life on planet Earth feeds off of the sun. Whether you are a plant and you're directly getting your energy from photosynthesis, or if you are an animal that eats the plant and gets the energy, or you are an animal that eats the animal that eats the plant, no matter where it comes from, you are getting your life directly from the sun, the light. And so imagine that like vampires, the reason why they have to feed on the blood of the living is because they cannot be in the light of the spirit, the light of the sun, or it will kill them. Well, same thing is true with evil spirits. And so evil spirits, what they feed off of is emotions. Now, they can't feed off of the emotions that draw you closer to your soul: joy, happiness, love, charity, these kinds of things. These kinds of things bring you closer to your soul, which is in fact made of light. Your soul is made of light. And so since these spirits can't tolerate the thought of being exposed by the light, they can only feed off of negative emotions: fear, anger, lust, greed, feelings that come from emptiness. This is what they feed off of. And in fact, alcoholics and drug addicts, this happens very frequently. Ghosts and evil spirits will slip in and live in the aura of drug addicts, alcoholics. And in fact, you don't even have to be an addict or an alcoholic. This is, again, why it's so dangerous to play around with spirit teacher plants without knowing what you're doing. Because when you ingest these chemicals, your aura literally gets torn open, which is why you have an experience. And what ends up happening is that entities can climb inside your aura and they start to feed off of your aura. Now, if they happen to be entities that are associated with things like drugs and alcohol, then they will push you to keep drinking, to keep doing drugs, to keep gambling, to keep whatever it is. And they feed off of the emotions that are created within you, the intensity, the fear, the anger, the anticipation, all of that. They feed off of that. But they will also feed off of your negative emotions. Now, the easiest negative emotion for them to create is fear. So this is why, when somebody talks about being possessed, they talk about the demon doing all kinds of crazy things and all that kind of stuff, because it creates fear. Fear is the most potent and it's the easiest one to create, and they feed off of that. I'm telling you from experience. I used to be an exorcist. I stopped doing it for reasons I'm going to show you later. But there's one thing you need to know to fend off a narcissist, whether that be a spiritual nature or a normal nature. So it is possible for somebody to be possessed by a negative entity and they can act narcissistically. They absolutely will if they are. Having said that, I am somebody who has performed many exorcisms. I know the difference between somebody who's wrapped up in their own unresolved psychological issues or are insane, and somebody who is possessed. There is a difference. And I'm telling you, the vast majority of people who think that they are possessed are not possessed. They just have unresolved emotional issues. But now let's get to the other narcissist. The narcissist that is fully human, that is not evil in the sense that they are not an evil spirit. I should take that back. They do evil things. When you act cruelly towards somebody and you use somebody or cause them harm for your own personal enjoyment, that is definitely, if there is a word for evil, that would be an act of evil for sure. But they're not, we're talking about just human beings who are narcissists, and they're not possessed by demons. So the short answer is that most narcissists are not possessed by demons. They just happen to be narcissists. So narcissists, as I said earlier, are people who are completely wrapped up in themselves. They cannot have empathy for anybody. Everybody on the planet except for them has no feelings, and is not real, and is therefore just there for their own pleasure. And the feelings that they do have, they feel no remorse for causing any of the pain. In fact, they seek to create the pain. So you want to ask yourself, why would a narcissist do that? Well, the reason is because the narcissist actually, and I'm talking like the psychological definition of narcissist. I'm not talking about the guy next door who's selfish and plays his music at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you want to, because you want to be cool and hip, and you hear this word narcissism, you want to call him a narcissist. Somebody accused me of being a narcissist today because I disagreed with him. I simply disagreed with him, and he said, I think I'm seeing some narcissism in you. I said, no, I just don't agree with you. That doesn't make me a narcissist. Yeah, we're talking about the psychological definition of narcissism. So you have to understand that the most powerful place to be is to have pity for the narcissist, because they live in hell. If you were to get past their defense mechanisms, their false bravado, their false confidence, their false superiority. You hear me repeating the word false because it's completely false. When you get past that, what you find is somebody who has no identity. And having an identity is like having a house in a hurricane. Without that house, you are in the midst of a horrific hurricane that is tearing you to pieces. Narcissism, like many other serious mental illnesses, and if we're talking about a narcissist, like a truly, psychologically, a narcissist, we're talking about somebody who's mentally ill. They're insane. They're crazy. And they lived through some kind of horrific horror as a kid. They were either abandoned emotionally, or they were outright abused, or they were shamed, or they were confused. In other words, their parents did not give them the love that they needed in order to create a sense of self. And without that sense of self, they live in this perpetual panic. It's horrific what they live with. So in order to survive, they create this false persona of superiority, of confidence. That's why they lie. They continuously lie about who they are and what they do. A true narcissist is really very hard pressed to be able to function at all on their own. They're very screwed up. So the pain that they are causing you, here's something you need to understand. The pain that they are consciously causing you is so that they can see reflected in you the pain that they are feeling all of the time on an unconscious level. They're not aware of it. This is all happening underneath the surface. The reason why they get off on it is because those are the only feelings they can relate to, because those are the only feelings they truly have. They don't have feelings of love. They don't have feelings of empathy. They don't have feelings of confidence, of happiness, joy, true pride in one's essence, because they feel completely worthless. The message they got is the message they give you. If the message that they're continuously giving you is that you are worthless, that you have no value, that you're a horrible person, that you aren't lovable, that you don't have value, you're not important, it's because that's the message they got. And so they're going to project that onto you. That's why they make you feel that way. They make you feel that way so they can see the result of that, and then they can vicariously see their own internal nature reflected in you. Now, that's not what they're thinking. In their mind, they're thinking, I'm getting off on this pain I'm causing, and they're eating the emotions. The other thing about we're talking cluster B personalities like narcissists. I think narcissism is cluster B. I could be wrong about that. But when we're talking about these kinds of mental illnesses where people don't have an identity, like borderline personality disorder, narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, These people have no internal reality. And, there's no way for you to know how horrible that is if you have an identity. Even if you have your own damaged identity, there's no way for you to know how horrible that is. Why am I telling you this? Am I telling you this so that you can feel sorry for them? No. I'm telling you this so that you can understand it's got nothing to do with you. They are doing it so that they can have some sense of reality, because for them, they desperately want to have emotions. They don't. Narcissists don't have love. They can't even understand it. They don't have love. They don't have empathy. So when they're around somebody that is having a loving experience, they are looking at the person, trying to understand what it looks like, or at the very least how they can copy it, because they know they don't have it. They know that they're different, and they know that they don't relate, and it makes them feel very lonely. The only time they don't feel lonely is when you are exhibiting the pain and the horror and the terror and the sadness and the shame that they're constantly living in. So then they finally, that's why they feel alive during that. That's the only reason why. Now, let's get to the real thing. I put on here how to spiritually destroy a narcissist. The way to spiritually destroy a narcissist is by getting your own identity and having your own personal and spiritual boundaries. Narcissists are, when we talk about the energy exchange, they are energy vampires. So they will feed off of your aura. If, there's been 2 times in my life with people that, now looking back on it, hindsight is 20/20, and experience, now that I've had experience, I know the difference between being with somebody who just has emotional issues and being with somebody who actually has one of these major psychological mental illnesses, specifically along these lines, borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, cluster B. Now I can tell the difference now, because these people, narcissists included, can be very high functioning, very intelligent, and very charming. And you can be standing there talking to them, and they can be extremely charming and witty and seemingly kind and generous and complimentary. And, part of you is like, wow, this is a really great person. But one part of you is going to be going, something doesn't feel right. And I can remember, now I remember both times these were people who had major, like hardcore borderline personality disorder. Looking back on it now that I've experienced it, I know. And what happened the first time around was, this was a woman, and we would go on dates, and all the stuff that happens with that. And she was just so fun and so amazing and so sweet and so kind and all of that stuff. And then, there would be no fights or anything wrong between us or anything like that. And then I would go, I'd go home, and then this feeling of, like, I can't explain it, this anxiety would start building inside of me, and I would feel like, and this fear and this anxiety and feeling like I was being just like chewed up from the inside out started coming over me. I was like, what is going on here? And I didn't know what it was. Went back on another date with this girl, and the same thing, a lot of fun, woohoo, everything was brilliant. And then I got home, same thing happened, and it got worse. And at the same time, this really weird obsession started, and I started like going, what is going on here? And then I went in my mind things that she had told me about her childhood, and then I didn't know what borderline personality disorder was at that time, but I put it together that, wow, this person is actually really broken inside, and they're unconsciously feeding off of my energy, and I can't be around this person. They haven't done anything wrong. At that point, she hadn't done anything wrong. But I knew, my body and my aura knew, you got to stay away from this person. She is toxic. That was the feeling, she's toxic. So I did. I stopped. I just became suddenly too busy, and I couldn't hang out with her anymore. And then later on, I had another experience with somebody that lasted a lot longer. Same kind of thing happened. You know, from the moment that I met this person, even before, the anxiety started creeping in, and I started losing my sense of identity, and I started getting this weird obsession, and I started feeling like as I talk about it, I can feel the anxiety piling up in me. So I can tell you that these people are energy vampires, and they're energy vampires because they don't have an identity. And that's the sad part. You should have compassion for them. And just like any very seriously mentally ill person, you need to stay away from them. You can't get personally involved because they can't help it. They're like vampires. They can't help it. They have to suck the life force out of you in order to survive because they've got nothing going on inside. It's a horrible place for them to be. So the thing that will destroy them spiritually is having boundaries. So let me, before I tell you, you see here the link here, spirittao.com. That's, if you want to just cut to the chase, just go to spirittao.com. Practice that energy practice. That will drive away negative entities, including people, and it will empower your aura spiritually and physically in order to ward off attacks. And you need to understand that if you have had, or if you still have, a relationship with somebody that you believe is a narcissist, that is because you are a prime target. See, narcissists are like wolves. Wolves do not attack the healthy animals in a herd. Humans do that. Humans go out hunting, they look for the biggest buck and they shoot it. Wolves don't. Wolves look for the sick and the old. And those are the ones they take down, or the very young. The vulnerable. They don't go after animals that can defend themselves. They go after the easiest targets. Narcissists are constantly on the lookout for easy targets, meaning that you don't have strong boundaries, meaning that you have shame, that you are somebody that they can easily pull into their sphere of influence and use and manipulate, that they can seduce you into their world. If somebody has a strong sense of self and if somebody has strong boundaries, number one, the narcissist will steer clear of them. But number two, even if they come at you, you'll see it coming a mile away. You know, I now have had enough experience to know when that happens, my body will say something is wrong here. You need to keep this person at a healthy distance. So if you are with a narcissist, like if you're in a romantic relationship with a narcissist, if you're honest with yourself, you will know that from the very beginning there have been red flags. From the very beginning there was a part of you that was saying, something's not right here. If you're honest with yourself. Because the truth of the matter is that there's no way that you end up with a narcissist unless you're born. I mean, you know, if you're born into a family where there's a narcissist there, that's one thing. But if you're just walking along one day and the next thing you know, you're in a relationship with this narcissist, that's because you sought them out. There was a part of you that, you know, you can go and search codependence if you want, but we won't talk about that. Your boundaries are severely damaged. And so the key is to empower your boundaries. This is what psychologists are going to begin to help you do, help you focus on yourself, how to create healthy boundaries. But you also need spiritual energy to do that. So that's what this link here is for, spirittao.com. Let me see if I do this right. spirittao.com. This link here will take you to a practice that if you practice it, it will give you energy to help you ward off negative spirits as well as people that could abuse you or take advantage of you. Now, as a result of it, if you do this practice, which is called Celestial Qigong, if you do it, one of the things that will happen is you will have to become conscious of, you know, the part of you that was seeking to be seduced by these people. Now you're saying to me, no way, there's no way I would want to do that. Well, like I said, listen, I'm telling you from experience. Having been an exorcist for as long as I have, having just getting these gray hairs on my beard, I can tell you that there's no way that we end up in these kinds of relationships unless we unconsciously seek them out. And I learned this when I was an exorcist. When I would do exorcisms, and I'm telling you, I saw things that that happened in the movie The Exorcist. Everything that you saw in that movie, except for the head spinning around, I've seen it. The projectile vomiting, changing, the voices changing, things flying across the room. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. So all that stuff is real. But one thing that I learned is that every time that I was casting a demon out of somebody, I found that the only way that I could get the demon to leave was if I got the person to acknowledge to me somebody had harmed them. And I found every single time somebody had been severely emotionally, psychologically, physically, sexually traumatized. And so what would happen is that the demon would come forth and they'd be saying all kinds of and then I would get the demon to back off, and then the other person, the actual person, would come forward and they'd be afraid, and I would say, hey, we don't have much time. You got to tell me who harmed you. Who was the person that harmed you? Yeah, Uncle Bill or whoever the heck it was, my dad, my sister, the next door neighbor, somebody. Somebody did something to them. And then they go back and the demon would come. And in between that, when the person was there and the limited time that I'd have, I'd say, you have to forgive your uncle. You have to forgive them. And if they refused, guess what? The demon would come back stronger. The only way I could get them to leave is if I could get them verbally to say, I forgive. And what that taught me was that the only way that demons can come into people is if somebody is trying to avoid some serious pain, because it's far, far, far easier to deal with the fear and the chaos that's caused by an external evil spirit than it is to focus on reliving what happened to you, who harmed you, and to let go of that. That is far more painful. And so people would rather be attacked by demons than face the real feelings underneath it. So that's why I stopped doing it, because I realized what these people need is they need to be in therapy. Because I would say to them, once I'd cast the demon out, I'd say, listen, you need to go to your priest or to your pastor or to a counselor or to a therapist, and you need to take a look at what happened, and you need to get your life together, and you got to get off drugs and whatever else you're doing. You got to do it, otherwise it's going to come back. And more often than not, they wouldn't listen to me, and guess what? It came back. So it really comes down to having boundaries. This practice here, the spirittao.com practice, this is a practice that gives you the ability to fight off negativity. It gives you power directly from the universe that you'll feel instantly when you start doing the practices. And on top of that, it will give you the ability to become conscious of things, and will give you strength to become conscious of things you hadn't been allowing yourself to be conscious of before. So that's it. The way to spiritually destroy a narcissist is to have your own boundaries, to have your own identity strong. It's the only thing you have, because if you have strong boundaries, a narcissist will avoid you every time. In fact, they'll run away from you. They will be frightened of you. They won't be frightened of you because you figured out some fancy way to outsmart them or to out-argue them. That's a waste of time. What's going to keep them away is if they can sense the light of the spirit coming from you, and that you have a strong identity and a strong self. That will frighten them away, and they won't want to have anything to do with you. If you're with a narcissist, start doing this practice. Start doing this practice, because what will happen is all of a sudden they'll start getting uncomfortable, and they may make it easy on you. They may leave you, and then you won't have to worry about it. But either way, this right here is the most powerful way that I know of to protect yourself from narcissism in all of its forms, including your own. All right, so that's it. See you back out there in YouTube land. Have a good day.